Captain Jack Wilson stared through the viewport of his damaged shuttle, watching as the storm clouds gathered on the horizon of planet LV-227. The emergency beacon blinked uselessly. Atmospheric interference. No rescue coming, at least not for days. Wonderful, he muttered, surveying the alien landscape. Dense purple vegetation stretched for miles, interrupted only by towering rock formations that reminded him of Earth's mesas. Oxygen levels were breathable, thankfully, but everything else about this uncharted world screamed danger. Jack had been on a routine supply run to the newly established research outpost in the Andromeda sector when his shuttle encountered an unexpected meteor shower. Now he was stranded on this unexplored planet with limited supplies and no immediate hope of rescue. As chief of security for the Terran Alliance's frontier operations, Jack had survived worse. 3 tours in the Centauri. Conflict had hardened him, taught him to overcome impossible odds. But this was different. Unknown terrain, unknown threats. He inventoried his supplies. Emergency rations for a week. A standard-issue plasma rifle with 2 power cells, a tactical knife, portable shelter, and basic medical supplies. Not ideal, but workable. The shuttle's systems were mostly fried, but the scanners still functioned well enough to detect nearby life forms. And there were many. Too many for comfort. Most registered as small to medium-sized, likely local fauna, but a few larger signatures lurked at the edges of the scanner's range. Night was falling. Jack decided to remain in the shuttle for the first night, barricading the damaged hull section with cargo containers. Tomorrow he would scout the area, perhaps find a more defensible position. Sleep came fitfully, interrupted by strange calls echoing across the alien plains. Howls that started low and rose to bone-chilling crescendos. Chittering sounds that seemed to surround the shuttle. Once, something heavy bumped against the hull, and Jack sat upright, rifle ready. But whatever it was moved on. Morning brought an eerie silence. As Jack emerged cautiously from the shuttle, scanners indicated clear surroundings. The air tasted metallic, and the gravity was slightly lighter than Earth standard, giving his movements an odd, floating quality. He had hiked barely half a kilometer when he found the first sign of intelligent life. A crude structure built from woven vegetation and stones, abandoned but recently so. Food scraps, still relatively fresh, lay scattered around a fire pit. A warning chirp from his scanner had Jack dropping into a defensive crouch. Movement, rapid and approaching. Then he saw them, 3 small aliens, no taller than his waist, with downy blue fur and 6-fingered hands. Cubs, he realized with a start. Children of some alien species. They froze upon seeing him, wide eyes, 3 per face, blinking rapidly. One stepped forward cautiously, chirping in a high-pitched language Jack's translator couldn't decipher. Its posture didn't seem threatening, more curious than anything. Jack slowly lowered his weapon, raising his empty hand in what he hoped was a universal sign of peace. "Hello there," he said softly. The lead cub tilted its head, then mimicked his gesture, raising a 6-fingered hand. It chirped excitedly to its companions. That's when Jack's scanner screamed a proximity alert, and before he could react, an adult version of the cubs burst from the underbrush. 7 feet tall, all muscle and claws and teeth with none of the cub's docile demeanor. Its roar shook the very air as it positioned itself between Jack and the cubs. And in that moment, Jack Wilson knew his survival had just become significantly more complicated. The adult alien's fur bristled, forming sharp quills along its spine, each of its 3 eyes fixed on Jack with predatory focus, pupils contracting to vertical slits. Its claws, easily the length of Jack's fingers, extended from massive paws. Jack's training kicked in. Slow movements. No sudden gestures. He backed, away carefully, keeping his rifle pointed downward. "Easy," he murmured, knowing the creature couldn't understand but hoping his tone would communicate non-aggression. "Just passing through." The smallest cub chirped again, tugging at the adult's leg fur and gesturing toward Jack with animated movements. The adult, likely a parent, hesitated, its aggressive posture softening slightly though suspicion remained. Evident a series of complex vocalizations passed between the cubs and the adult. Jack's translator struggled, capturing only fragments. Strange, 2 legs, sky fallen. The standoff lasted several tense minutes before the adult alien made a decision. It grunted, gesturing with a massive paw toward the path leading away. From the shuttle, the meaning was clear. Leave. Jack nodded slowly and began backing away. The family group watched him retreat, the cubs waving their small hands in what seemed like curiosity rather than threat. Once at a safe distance, Jack consulted his scanner. The surrounding area contained several clusters of life signs similar to the alien family. A community, then. He marked the location to avoid. No sense pressing his luck with protective parents. He directed his path toward a series of rocky outcroppings that might provide shelter. The terrain grew increasingly difficult, with thick vegetation giving way to sharp volcanic rock formations. The reduced gravity made climbing easier, but the jagged surfaces threatened to slice through his boots. By midday, Jack had reached a plateau offering a commanding view of the valley below. What he saw stole his breath. A vast settlement sprawled across the lowlands. Hundreds of the dome-shaped structures he'd seen earlier, arranged in concentric circles around a central building that dwarfed the others. Alien architecture, but recognizably a civilization. Movement drew his attention to the settlement's edge. A hunting party was returning, adults like the one he'd encountered, carrying large carcasses of some 6-legged creatures. The society appeared to be tribal, primitive by human standards but clearly organized. Jack's scanner suddenly emitted a warning tone. Something was approaching from behind, something big. He spun, rifle raised, to find himself facing a creature entirely different from the fur-covered aliens. This beast walked on 4 legs, each ending in hooked talons. Its body was covered in chitinous plates, and what passed for its head housed multiple sensory organs, but no eyes that Jack could identify. It hissed, revealing rows of needle-like teeth, a predator, and Jack stood between it and its hunting grounds below. The creature charged without warning, covering ground with frightening speed. Jack fired a plasma burst that glanced off its armored hide, barely slowing it. He dodged, using the reduced gravity to leap aside as the monster barreled past. It skidded, turning with surprising agility, and lunged again. This time, Jack aimed for what appeared to be joint sections between its armor plates. The plasma bolt found its mark, and the creature shrieked, green ichor spraying from the wound. It retreated several steps, reassessing this unexpectedly dangerous prey. Jack kept his rifle trained on it, searching for another vulnerable spot. Their standoff was interrupted by a hunting horn from below. The beast's head swiveled toward the sound, then back to Jack. With a final hiss, it backed away and disappeared into the rocks. Jack exhaled slowly, adrenaline still coursing through his system. The planet had just revealed another layer of danger, apex predators that could shrug off plasma fire. As darkness approached, he set up his portable shelter in a defensible crevice, programming proximity alerts. Tomorrow, he would need to find water and perhaps establish contact with the alien settlement. If their reaction was anything like the parent he'd encountered earlier, that would be a dangerous proposition. He checked the emergency beacon again. Still nothing but static. Jack was on his own, caught between protective aliens and ruthless predators. He settled in for another restless night, listening to the sounds of this alien world, his temporary home, whether he liked it or not. Dawn broke with a chorus of alien calls echoing across the valley. Jack emerged from his shelter, muscles stiff from another night of fitful sleep. His water supplies were running dangerously low, and the scanner had detected a potential source nearby, a stream flowing from the highlands down toward the alien settlement. As he approached the water source, Jack noticed something unusual. Geometric patterns carved into nearby rocks. Not random scratches, but deliberate symbols. Communication or art, he couldn't tell, but definitely signs of intelligence. The stream itself ran clear but with an unusual bluish tint. Jack's portable analyzer indicated it contained unfamiliar minerals, but nothing immediately toxic to humans. He carefully filtered several bottles, replenishing his supplies. While kneeling by the stream, a reflection in the water caught his attention. Movement above. Jack looked up to find himself being watched by a small group of the aliens, perched on ledges overhead. Not cubs this time, but not the full-sized adults either. Adolescents, perhaps. They made no aggressive moves, simply observing him with those triplet eyes. Jack slowly stood, keeping his hands visible. "Hello again," he said, knowing they couldn't understand but trying anyway. One of the young aliens, with slightly darker fur than the others, scrambled down the rocks with impressive agility. It stopped several meters away, studying Jack intently. Then, to his astonishment, it pulled something from a crude pouch, a small device that looked strikingly similar to human technology. The alien pressed a button, and a holographic image appeared, a crude map of the surrounding area. It pointed to a location, then to Jack, then made a sweeping gesture toward the settlement. "You want me to come with you?" Jack asked, pointing to himself, then the map, then the direction of the settlement. The alien nodded, a surprisingly human gesture. Either it had observed this from Jack, or some behaviors were universal. Jack weighed his options. Remaining alone meant continued isolation and eventual resource depletion. Following these aliens might lead to capture or worse, but also possibly to communication, shelter, perhaps even help repairing his beacon. "Lead the way," he finally said, gesturing forward. The journey to the settlement took most of the day. The young aliens led him on a circuitous route, avoiding the main trails. They seemed nervous, constantly scanning their surroundings. Twice they all froze, pressing into hiding spots as hunting parties passed nearby. This wasn't an official invitation, Jack realized. These youngsters had decided to bring him in on their own. As they approached the settlement's outskirts, the aliens became increasingly cautious. They led Jack to a dome structure separate from the main circles, gesturing for him to enter. Inside, he found a space clearly designed for storage. Containers of unknown materials lined the walls, and the air smelled of preserved foods and curing hides. The dark-furred alien who had shown him the map made gestures indicating he should stay, then pressed its six-fingered hand briefly against Jack's arm. A surprising moment of cross-species contact. Then they all disappeared, leaving him alone. Jack used the time to study his surroundings. The technology level was puzzling. Primitive construction methods alongside devices like the holographic map. A society in transition, perhaps, or one that had regressed from a more advanced state. Hours passed before the entrance flap moved again. Jack tensed, hand moving to his weapon. An elderly alien entered, ancient by the looks of its graying fur and stooped posture. Following behind came the young aliens from earlier, plus several adults who regarded Jack with open suspicion. The elder approached without fear, stopping directly before Jack. From within its robes, it produced a device far more sophisticated than anything Jack had seen so far. A true universal translator, not unlike those used by the Terran Alliance, but of distinctly alien design. The device hummed to life, scanning Jack's language patterns from his earlier speech. After a moment, it spoke in a mechanical approximation of human language. "You come from stars. Why here? Why our world?" Jack chose his words carefully, aware that this exchange might determine his fate. "My vessel was damaged. I crashed. I mean, no harm to your people or your world. I am alone. And I seek only to repair my communication device so others can find me." The elder's three eyes blinked in sequence as the translator conveyed Jack's words. A long moment of silence followed. "Others will come for you?" the translator finally asked. "Yes," Jack confirmed. "But they mean no harm either. We are explorers." The elder made a sound, a laugh perhaps, or a scoff. "Explorers. Always first. Then comes rest." Jack didn't need clarification to understand. The alien's meaning. How many worlds had seen explorers arrive, only to be followed by colonists, miners, terraformers? "What will you do with me?" Jack asked directly. The elder gestured broadly. "Council must decide. Until then you stay. You learn. We learn." As the elder turned to leave, Jack called out one last question. "What are you called? Your people, I mean." The translator paused, as if searching for an equivalent. Finally it produced, "We are Krell. You are human. Both are people of worlds. Now we see if both can be people of same world." With that enigmatic statement, the elder departed, leaving Jack with his young guides, and a growing sense that his presence had just triggered something momentous for the Krell people. Days blended into one another as Jack settled into an uneasy existence among the Krell. He was given quarters in the storage building, which the young aliens, who he now understood were called Seekers in their culture, had converted into rudimentary living space. The dark-furred Seeker who had first shown him the map was named Tav, and had appointed himself Jack's primary guide and interpreter. Through the Elder's translator device, which Tav was permitted to use for limited periods, Jack learned more about Krell society. The Krell were primarily hunter-gatherers, organized into family units called nests. They possessed technology far beyond what their primitive lifestyle suggested, remnants of a more advanced civilization that had deliberately simplified their existence generations ago after nearly destroying their world through resource exploitation. What Jack had initially taken for a tribal village was actually a carefully designed community that balanced technology with sustainable living. The central building housed their council and contained their most advanced equipment, used sparingly and only when necessary. "Today you come with Hunt," Tav announced on Jack's 5th morning among the Krell. "Council says you must contribute." Jack understood the unspoken message. His welcome was conditional on proving his worth. He followed Tav to the settlement's edge, where a hunting party awaited. The adult Krell regarded him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. The hunt leader, a scarred veteran named Kors, growled something the translator rendered as, "Can the soft skin keep pace without frightening all prey?" "I'll try not to embarrass myself," Jack replied, earning grunt-like chuckles from several hunters. They moved out into the purple forests, tracking 6-legged herbivores called ramak. Jack quickly realized that Krell hunting methods were sophisticated. They used sound patterns to drive the creatures toward prepared positions, coordinating through subtle hand signals and occasional low whistles. Jack was positioned as an observer, but when a ramak unexpectedly changed direction and charged toward a younger hunter, his security training took over. He tackled the young Krell out of the beast's path, then rolled to his feet and faced the charging animal. With no time to draw his rifle, Jack fell back on hand-to-hand combat techniques. He sidestepped at the last moment, using the planet's lighter gravity to leap and land on the creature's back. He locked his arm around what passed for its neck, applying pressure to vital points until it collapsed, unconscious rather than dead. The hunting party stared in stunned silence. Kors approached, examining the subdued ramak. "You did not kill," the hunt leader observed. "Didn't need to," Jack explained. "It's just startled, not aggressive." Kors studied Jack with new interest. "Different way, not bad way." He gestured to the others. "We take this one alive, learn human method." That evening the mood toward Jack had shifted. The hunters recounted his takedown of the ramak with animated gestures, and even some of the previously hostile adults approached to examine his strange 5-fingered hands, marveling at their dexterity despite the missing digit. The council summoned him the following morning. The elder who had first spoken with him, whom Jack now knew was called Vex, presided over 7 other aged Krell. "Human Jack," Vex began through the translator. "Hunters say you showed mercy to Ramak. Why?" Jack considered his answer carefully. "It wasn't necessary to kill it. Where I come from, we try not to take life needlessly." Murmurs rippled through the council. Vex's eyes narrowed. "Yet your kind has weapons that could destroy worlds. We have seen the stars. We know what waits there." This revelation surprised Jack. "You've been to space? You have starships?" "Once," Vex replied. "Long ago. We chose to return, to remember the soil that bore us. But we watch. We listen. We know of humans and others." The implications were staggering. The Krell weren't primitive at all. They were a post-technological society that had deliberately retreated from interstellar capability. "Your signal device," Vex continued. "It calls your people. If we help repair, what comes next? Trade? Embassy? Colony?" Jack couldn't lie. "I don't know. My people are explorers first. But yes, others follow. Scientists, diplomats, sometimes settlers." Vex exchanged looks with the other council members before announcing, "We will decide on helping you. Until then, you will learn our ways. Tomorrow, you join Seekers. They study predator movements, Very dangerous. Very important. As Jack left the council chamber, Tav waited outside, practically vibrating with excitement. We go to high territories tomorrow, where fierce ones hunt. Council. Never sends new seekers there, but you different. Lucky me, Jack muttered, wondering if the council's decision was a test or a convenient way to dispose of a problematic alien visitor. Either way, tomorrow would take him into the domain of the armored predators he'd barely survived during his first days on the planet, creatures the Krell called Razor Claw. And based on Tav's barely contained terror and excitement, even the Krell considered them the planet's apex threat. Pre-dawn light cast the landscape in eerie blue shadows as Jack and 5 young Krell seekers ascended the rocky highlands. Tav led the way, consulting a crude map occasionally, but mostly following what he called predator signs, territorial markings and scattered remains of unfortunate prey. Each seeker carried a recording device to document Razorclaw behavior, and a defensive shock staff that Tav had assured Jack was mostly effective at deterring the predators. Jack kept his plasma rifle ready, having adjusted its settings to target the joint weaknesses he discovered during his first encounter. Why study creatures that could easily kill you? Jack asked Tav during a brief rest. The translator rendered Tav's reply. Razorclaw and Krell. Ancient dance. They hunt, we hide. They advance, we retreat. Balance. Must understand enemy to maintain balance. You never tried to eliminate them? Jack pressed. Tav's triple eyes widened in what Jack now recognized as shock. Eliminate? No. Razorclaw keeps forest healthy. Keeps Ramek herds strong. Keeps Krell watchful. All threads in world weave. Jack nodded, beginning to understand the Krell philosophy better. They viewed their ecosystem as a complex tapestry where every species, even dangerous predators, served a purpose. By midday, they reached a high plateau overlooking a series of ravines, Razorclaw territory. The Seekers set up observation posts in sheltered positions, using sophisticated camouflage that bent light around their hiding spots. We watch, Tav explained. Record hunting patterns, nesting behaviors, offspring care. Each season, new data. Building knowledge map of Razorclaw. Hours passed with no sightings. The young Seekers grew restless, whispering among themselves. Jack noticed they kept glancing toward a particular ravine with obvious dread. What's down there? He asked Tav. The young Krell's fur rippled anxiously. Queen's nest. Ancient female. Larger than others, smarter, most dangerous. And I'm guessing that's exactly where we need to go? Tav's nervous chittering confirmed Jack's suspicion. As the twin suns began to set, the party descended cautiously into the ravine system. The temperature dropped noticeably, and the rock formations took on twisted, almost organic shapes. Phosphorescent fungi provided dim illumination, revealing claw marks scored deep into stone surfaces. Territorial boundaries. They passed several abandoned Razorclaw nests, collecting samples and recording observations. Jack's combat instincts screamed warnings with every step deeper into the predator's domain. Tav, he whispered. Something's not right. Where are the Razorclaws? There should be signs of recent activity. Before Tav could respond, a distress call echoed from ahead, one of the Seekers who'd scouted forward. The group rushed forward to find the young Krell frozen in terror, staring at a massive cavern entrance. Inside lay dozens of Razorclaws, not hunting or moving, but lying still, many obviously dead or dying. The survivors barely responded to the intruders, their normally fearsome presence reduced to labored breathing and occasional weak hisses. Disease? One Seeker suggested. Tav approached, cautiously, scanning one of the creatures with a handheld device. Not disease. Poison. Biochemical toxin. Jack surveyed the cavern, noting a strange crystalline growth on the walls that he hadn't seen elsewhere. Could that be causing it? Tav scanned the crystals, his posture immediately changing to alarm. Not natural. Artificial compound. Breaking down molecular structures in Razorclaw biology. Someone's deliberately poisoning them? Jack asked, troubled by the implications. A rumbling growl answered his question. From deeper in the cavern emerged the Queen. An enormous Razorclaw nearly twice the size of those Jack had encountered. Despite her weakened state, she radiated menace, her armored plates showing the scars of countless battles. The Seekers retreated hastily, but Jack held his ground, struck by the intelligence in the creature's sensory cluster. She wasn't charging, wasn't attacking, she was assessing him. She knows we're different from whatever's killing her kind, Jack realized aloud. Tav, showing remarkable courage, stepped forward to stand beside Jack. Queen very old, very wise for non-thinking creature. Maybe understands. The Queen Razorclaw swayed, clearly struggling to remain upright. She produced a series of clicking sounds, then collapsed to the cavern floor, her breathing labored. Jack made a decision that surprised even himself. He approached the fallen predator, ignoring Tav's alarmed chirps. Kneeling beside the massive creature, he examined the crystalline growth spreading across her armored hide. "I think I've seen something like this before," he told the Seekers. "On Epsilon 4, mining corporations use similar compounds to clear indigenous life from areas marked for extraction." Tav translated for the others, their alarm growing. "You say someone preparing our world for mining?" "I don't know," Jack admitted. "But we need to take samples back to your council. Whatever's happening here isn't natural, and it's not just a threat to the Razorclaws." As they prepared to leave, the Queen Razorclaw's sensory cluster oriented toward Jack one final time. Despite the vast biological differences between them, Jack felt an unmistakable communication pass between them. A recognition of mutual threat, perhaps even a plea. "We'll be back," he told the dying predator, not entirely sure why he felt compelled to make such a promise to a creature that, under normal circumstances, would have torn him apart without hesitation. As they hurried back toward the Krell settlement, under the cover of darkness, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that the situation was far more complex than a crashed human and an isolated alien society. Someone else was on this planet. Someone with advanced technology and no concern for the delicate balance the Krell had maintained for generations. The question was, who? The Krell council chamber erupted in chaos as Tav presented their findings. The elders passed the crystal samples among themselves, expressions growing increasingly grave. Jack stood silently, observing the proceedings until Vex finally raised a hand for quiet. "Human Jack," the elder addressed him directly. "You recognize this poison. Tell Council more." Jack stepped forward. "It's similar to a compound called XR-27, developed by Quantum Resource Industries for clearing hostile environments. It's highly targeted, designed to affect specific biological systems while leaving others intact." "Why here? Why now?" demanded another elder. "I can't be certain," Jack admitted, "but my crash wasn't entirely accidental. My shuttle detected unusual energy signatures just before the meteor storm hit. Signatures consistent with directed energy weapons." This revelation caused another uproar among the council. When calm was restored, Vex asked, "You believe someone attacked you? Why?" "My mission included surveying this sector for potential new outposts. QRI has been pushing for mining rights in this region. If they found this planet first..." Jack let the implication hang. Corporate prospectors operating beyond legal boundaries wasn't uncommon in frontier space. If QRI had discovered valuable resources here, they might take extreme measures to secure exclusive access, including eliminating witnesses and preparing the environment for extraction. "The Razorclaws are just the beginning," Jack continued. "This type of compound works its way through the ecosystem. First predators, then smaller creatures, eventually affecting plant life. It prepares a planet for terraforming." Vex's eyes narrowed. "And your people? Will they stop this?" "If they knew, yes. The Terran Alliance has strict laws against unauthorized terraforming, especially on inhabited worlds. But they don't know I'm here, and they don't know about your people." The council conferred privately before Vex announced their decision. "We will help repair your communication device. You will call your people. But first, we must stop poison spreaders." Jack nodded grimly. "We need to find their base of operations. If they're using XR-27 or something similar, they'll have a significant facility somewhere on the planet." That night, the Krell mobilized with surprising efficiency. What Jack had mistaken for primitive living revealed itself as a society fully capable of employing advanced technology when necessary. They produced sensor arrays, communication devices, and even weapons far beyond the simple tools they normally used. "Your people chose to live simply," Jack observed to Tav as they prepared for the search mission. But you kept your advanced knowledge. Balance, Tav explained. Technology serves life, not replaces it. We use when needed, then return to soil ways. By morning, 6 search teams had deployed across the planet. Jack joined Vex and a group of seasoned hunters equipped with scanner, technology disguised as traditional weapons. They headed toward a mountain range that preliminary scans had identified as containing unusual metal concentrations. As they approached, Jack's own scanner detected energy signatures similar to those he'd observed before his crash. "We're close," he whispered to Vex. "Very close." They crested a ridge and dropped to cover immediately. In the valley below stood a massive facility, sleek and modern, bearing the unmistakable QRI corporate logo. Automated harvesters extracted ore from exposed veins, while atmospheric processors billowed clouds of chemically altered air into the sky. How did we not see this before? Jack wondered aloud. Vex gestured to shimmering distortions surrounding the facility. Hide fields, bend light, mask heat, block signals, advanced technology. Jack counted at least 20 human personnel moving around the facility. Standard corporate security protocols suggested twice that number would be inside, along with automated defense systems. "We need to shut down their poison distribution first," Jack said. "Then their communications. If they can't call for backup, we stand a better chance." Vex studied the facility. "How enter without being seen?" Jack pointed to a series of large pipes extending from the facility into a nearby water source. "Coolant system. We can access through there if we can handle the underwater approach." "Krell swim better than humans," Vex noted, with what Jack recognized as pride. "We guide you." As they formulated their plan, Jack's scanner suddenly alerted to approaching signatures. Razor claws, a dozen or more, moving with purpose toward the facility. The Queen, Jack realized. She's rallied the survivors. They watched in astonishment as the Razor Claws coordinated their movements with unmistakable intelligence, surrounding the facility's perimeter. One security guard spotted them and raised his weapon, only to be taken down by a Razor Claw that moved with blinding speed. Alarms blared across the facility. Security personnel rushed to defensive positions as Razor Claws began systematically attacking the outer structures. "They're creating a diversion," Jack said, incredulous at the Predator's apparent strategy. Vex made a decision. "We use this chance. We enter while humans fight Razor Claw." As chaos erupted around the facility, Jack, Vex, and 3 Krell hunters slipped into the water, swimming toward the intake pipes. Behind them, the Razor Claws continued their assault, somehow knowing to target power generators and communication arrays rather than random structures. Jack couldn't help but wonder if the Queen Razor Claw had understood more from their brief encounter than he'd imagined possible. Whatever the explanation, the ancient Predator had just become an unlikely ally in the fight to save this world. As they breached the facility through the maintenance access at the end of the coolant pipe, Jack chambered a round in his plasma rifle. The coming confrontation would determine not just his fate, but the future of the Krell, the Razor Claws, and the delicate balance of an entire ecosystem. And one human stood with the planet's defenders against the ruthless predators of corporate greed. Alarms wailed as Jack and the Krell infiltration team navigated the facility's maintenance tunnels. The distant sounds of combat, plasma fire and Razor Claw shrieks, provided cover for their movements. "Central control should be here," Jack whispered, consulting the schematic he'd constructed based on standard QRI facility layouts. "We need to reach the environmental systems first. Shut down the poison distribution." Vex nodded, signaling the other Krell to move forward. They encountered 2 security guards rushing to reinforce the perimeter defense. Jack disabled one with a precision stun shot, while Vex demonstrated surprising strength, incapacitating the other with a swift blow. "Not first time fighting outsiders," the Elder explained, seeing Jack's surprised expression. They reached the environmental control room to find it automated but unguarded. All personnel had been diverted to the Razor Claw attack. Jack quickly accessed the system, confirming his suspicions. XR-27 derivative, just as I thought. They're dispersing it through atmospheric processors. His fingers flew across the control interface. "I can shut it down, but the damage already done will take years to reverse naturally." "Can poison be neutralized?" Vex asked. Jack studied the chemical composition displayed on the screen. Theoretically, yes. There's a compound that could counteract it, but synthesizing enough would take resources we don't have. One of the Krell hunters stepped forward, interfacing his seemingly primitive staff with the facility's systems. To Jack's amazement, the alien technology seamlessly integrated with the human computers. "We have resources," the hunter said through the translator. "Ancient stores, what humans call nanites, can reprogram to target poison." Jack stared in disbelief. "You've had programmable nanotechnology all this time?" Vex's eyes blinked in sequence, the Krell equivalent of a shrug. "Last resort technology. World-changing power requires world-saving need." While the hunter worked on reprogramming the facility's synthesizers to create the neutralizing agent, Jack and Vex proceeded to the communications center. They encountered stiffer resistance here, 3 security officers who opened fire immediately. Jack returned fire, creating cover while Vex circled behind with remarkable agility. Between them, they subdued the guards without fatalities. Jack immediately set to work disabling the long-range communications array. "They've been sending regular updates to QRI headquarters," he discovered, scanning the logs. "Last transmission reported my crash. They were ordered to ensure no evidence remained." "Evidence of human or evidence of Krell?" Vex asked. "Both," Jack replied grimly. "According to this, they discovered your people months ago but classified you as pre-technological natives. Minimal threat to their operation, and insufficient technological development to qualify for protection under Terran Alliance regulations." Vex made a sound that the translator didn't attempt to interpret. Something between a laugh and a growl. Convenient assessment. A massive explosion rocked the facility. Security camera feeds showed that the Razor Claws had breached the main entrance, flooding into the interior spaces with terrifying efficiency. More surprising was their selective targeting. They destroyed equipment, but largely ignored fleeing personnel. "The Queen is controlling them somehow," Jack realized, "directing the attack." "Intelligence takes many forms," Vex observed. "Razorclaw and Krell, long dance of survival. Perhaps they learned more than we knew." The hunter, who had remained at environmental control, contacted them through a Krell communication device. "Neutralizing agent ready. Facility synthesizers producing at maximum capacity. Need to access distribution system." "The atmospheric processors," Jack confirmed. "We need to reach the roof." Their path to the facility's upper levels brought them face to face with the facility director, a hard-faced woman flanked by the last of her security detail. "Wilson," she spat, recognizing Jack. "Should have known you'd survive. Always were too stubborn to die properly." "Director Reeves," Jack acknowledged, keeping his weapon trained on her. "Illegal operations. Attempted murder of a Terran Alliance. Officer, ecological warfare. Quite a resume you're building." Reeves laughed coldly. "This backwater planet has trillion-credit mineral deposits. QRI will have them, with or without Alliance approval. You really think anyone will choose some primitive aliens over those profits?" "I choose them," Jack said firmly. "And I'm not alone." As if on cue, the walls behind Reeves's group exploded. Inward. The Queen Razorclaw burst through, accompanied by 3 of her largest hunters. The security team turned to fire at the new threat. In the momentary chaos, Vex and the other Krell launched themselves forward with unexpected speed. The skirmish lasted seconds. When it ended, Reeves and her guards were disarmed and surrounded by an unlikely alliance of human, Krell, and Razorclaw. The Queen's sensory cluster oriented toward Jack, then to Reeves. Though lacking eyes in the conventional sense, the ancient predator seemed to look between them, making a judgment. She stepped toward Reeves, who shrank back in terror. "She won't hurt you," Jack said, surprising himself with his certainty. "Not unless you give her reason." "You're insane," Reeves hissed. "These are animals." Vex stepped forward. "No, not just animals. Not just anything. All life has purpose. All life has place. You poison world because you see only things to take, not balance to maintain." They bound Reeves and her remaining personnel, then proceeded to the roof access. The atmospheric processors loomed overhead, massive towers belching chemically treated air across the landscape. Jack interfaced with the control systems while the Krell connected their reprogrammed nanite solution to the distribution network. The Razorclaws formed a perimeter, watching the horizon as if expecting reinforcements. "Ready," Jack announced. "Reprogramming distribution cycle now." With a series of commands, he reversed the process. The processors shuddered, then began releasing the neutralizing compound. Within hours, it would begin breaking down the XR27 derivative throughout the ecosystem. Now for the final piece, Jack said, turning to a communication terminal. Time to call in the cavalry. He bypassed the facility's compromised systems, connecting his emergency beacon directly to the Alliance emergency frequency. The message was brief and to the point. This is Captain Jack Wilson, Terran Alliance Security. Crashed on uncharted planet in Andromeda Sector. Coordinates attached. Quantum Resource Industries operating illegal mining facility with intent to terraform inhabited world. Requesting immediate intervention. Indigenous sentient species under threat. Repeat. Inhabited world with sentient species. As the message transmitted, Jack turned to Vex. My people will come now. When they do, everything changes for the Krell. The Elder nodded slowly. We know. Council prepared for this day. Old isolation ending. New balance must be found. Through the translator, the Queen Razorclaw made a series of clicks and hisses that rendered as territory threatened, defense necessary, new hunting ways needed. Jack looked between these two ancient enemies, the wise Krell Elder and the ruthless Predator Queen, now standing as unlikely allies. I'll make sure the Alliance understands, he promised. This planet belongs to both your peoples. The balance you've maintained deserves protection. 3 days later, an Alliance peacekeeping vessel entered orbit. By then, the neutralizing agent had begun to take effect. The Razorclaws were showing signs of recovery, and Krell healers had begun treating affected wildlife throughout their territories. Jack stood with Vex and Tav at the landing site as the Alliance shuttle touched down. Behind them, visible but maintaining distance, the Queen Razorclaw observed with her surviving hunters. Commander Ellis stepped from the shuttle, taking in the strange assembly with professional composure. Captain Wilson, your report mentioned indigenous sentient life, but not this. Jack straightened to attention. Commander, may I present Elder Vex of the Krell people, and in the distance, the Razorclaw Queen, not sentient in the way we define it, but intelligent enough to form a temporary alliance when their world was threatened. Ellis studied the aliens with growing understanding. QRI personnel are in custody. Their corporation is facing serious charges. This planet will be classified as a protected biosphere immediately. With recognized sovereignty for the Krell, Jack insisted. Of course, Ellis agreed. Alliance protocols are clear regarding technological civilizations, regardless of their chosen lifestyle. Vex stepped forward, addressing Ellis through the translator. Human help welcome. Human interference not. We accept alliance, not governance. Ellis blinked in surprise at the directness, then nodded. Understood, Elder. We respect your autonomy. As Alliance personnel began setting up a temporary outpost, well away from both Krell and Razorclaw territories, Jack found himself standing with Tav at the edge of the landing zone. You leave with them? The young seeker asked. Jack considered the question. His duty called him back to the Alliance, to report and testify against QRI. But something about this planet, about the delicate balance between its peoples, had changed him. I'll return, he decided. The Alliance needs someone who understands both sides, someone who can stand between humans and this world. Tav's fur rippled in what Jack now recognized as excitement. You become Seeker. Learn Krell ways, learn Razorclaw ways. Jack smiled. Something like that. A bridge between worlds. As the twin suns set on the horizon, casting purple shadows, across the landscape, Jack Wilson watched the unlikely gathering of species. Alliance personnel establishing diplomatic contact with the Krell. Razorclaws patrolling the perimeter, still wary, but no longer actively hostile. One human who crashed on an alien world had somehow found himself standing between ancient enemies, helping forge an unprecedented alliance. The path ahead would not be easy. Corporate interests would not abandon such valuable resources without a fight, and centuries of evolution had designed the Krell and Razorclaws to be natural opponents. But for the first time since his crash, Jack felt genuine hope. This strange world had found its balance for millennia before humans arrived. With respect and understanding, perhaps a new balance could emerge, one that included his own people, without destroying what made this planet unique. The Queen Razorclaw approached, stopping at what she apparently considered a respectful distance. Her sensory cluster oriented toward Jack, then up to the stars now appearing in the darkening sky. Through the translator, her clicks and hisses formed words that seemed impossibly philosophical, coming from what most humans would consider a simple predator. New hunters come from stars. Territory changes. We adapt. We survive. Always have. Jack nodded in acknowledgement of this ancient intelligence. Together, he promised. All of us. Together. And somehow, standing between these disparate species on an alien world far from everything he had known, Captain Jack Wilson, the human who had stood alone, found himself exactly where he belonged. The end.